Hey, we got our astronomer back in here. Hey, what's up, buddy?
Hi, hello.
Hey, welcome back, man. Hey, guess what, man? There's a bunch of lights in the sky that tell us we live on a flat, stationary plane. We checked it out, man. What do you think of that?
Yeah, Flat Earth Professor. Yeah, before anybody starts here, I was just gonna wait for it because I heard him earlier, but I was at work, so I couldn't chime in. But I had a question that I came in and I asked him, but it got overran in the conversation, and I couldn't ask him the question. So specifically, and Indio was here during the time that we were actually talking about this question. So specifically was about the exoplanets. The question that I had was directly to something that you actually study with.
Okay.
So
yeah, I just want to say real quick though, I don't have time to get back into like a long conversation. I was just going to listen because I'm grading a bunch of homeworks that I do tomorrow. But I could definitely answer like one question real quick.
Anyway,
I will be back later, and I would love to get back into another. I had really good conversation this morning, so I'd love to talk more later.
All right. So let me ask you before you.
Sure.
Before you bolt.
I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to leave. I was just here to hang out and listen.
You did say that if I'm because we have a lot of people that come through this chat, right? So I don't want to mistake you for somebody else. But were you the one that said that you study exoplanets? Was that true or not?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, so that makes sure because there was some other guy that we're mistaken for. They were like, "Is this a guy or some other guy?" So we were trying to think.
I was here this morning talking about my work. I study exoplanets a little bit. It's like sort of tangential to my work. I mostly study protoplanetary systems, but it's pretty similar.
All right. Well, I don't know when you want to have that conversation, Itaer, but like,
we could have a short talk about it right now. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. Like, I can't get into like a super long thing like we had this morning, which was very enjoyable and interesting.
Okay, how far or how extensive is your knowledge in the exoplanet understanding? Like,
pretty good.
Did you? Okay, so do you make observations of exoplanets? Do you have information that leads like?
I have made observations of exoplanets in the past. It's not my primary like area of study though. But like I know.
So you don't publish anything, do you? Like, there's no work that you're doing that's like maybe signed off by you.
I have not published any work that is directly touching on exoplanets. No.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, not that I care that you have your name out there or whatever, because to me that doesn't matter. But only thing that I'm saying is if you had any knowledge behind that, because there was some
talk about exoplanets. Yeah.
Well, like there's questions that would be leading. What I mean to say is that like since you just probably help people, you don't actually like you're not the lead person to talk about, like I would say. Well, it sounds like anyway. You just probably help with certain areas of like the study of those things. Like you don't do like hands-on with like putting information out there to like for public consumption. You know what I mean? Like obviously somebody's going to be out there saying the authority on like what exoplanets are, images and all kinds of things like that. Like you're just somebody who like helps those guys, or like what is your like involvement with that?
Yeah, so I do publish research. The research that I publish is not about exoplanets; it's about protoplanetary systems, which are sort of similar. I have made I have operated a telescope that was taking pictures of exoplanets. I have done that. I don't work for NASA, so I don't represent like a public telling everyone what exoplanets are. That's not really what I do, right? I'm a researcher.
So how do you tie into the whole like academic like system? Like what part do you play in?
I'm a PhD student.
I know, but I'm saying is, what is your contribution from your work? Like, do you submit things to the organizations?
I do publish papers. They're just not about exoplanets.
But who uses this information? Like, where does it get used up so that maybe the public can know about it? Like, do other companies borrow your work and say, hey, you've done some study over here. Let me just take your work.
Publish is publicly available. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not going to link it here, but generally speaking, yeah, it's publicly available. I don't know if random people are reading it necessarily. It's it's intended for a scientific audience, but anyone could read it. It's out there. It's free.
And how many years have you been dealing with this? I'm just getting a little background information because it's me. I think it's.
I've been working in this area for maybe like 5 or 6 years.
So you know what you're talking about when we're.
generally speaking,
the subject matter.
I mean, if you want to talk about the evolution of protoplanetary disks, I definitely know what I'm talking about. Everything else, my education has included many things, but it's not like my main thing, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I don't want to take away from what you're doing now because it sounds like you got busy work. But what I'm most interested in is the fact that when we have our discussions in here, and we have the top authorities of these like certain fields that come in here, they give us a lot of fluff and not enough hard evidence. So there's a lot of things that would precede a conversation that would lead us to understand like where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. And we want to gather as much information that we can to at least make our case either that much stronger, or know at least from your perspective what you actually do that puts a contribution to like the whole scene of like the idea of the vacuum of space being told to us by way of academia. So
sure. Yeah,
that sort of thing.
Like, I'm happy to answer questions. And
so there's no
just so we're on the same page, right? I didn't come in here because I'm like, man, these flat earthers have got it so wrong. The Earth is a sphere, and I got to go out here and convince them, right? I just think it's interesting that this is a discussion, and I don't want to hear about it and just sort of chat about it. I'm not really here to try to deeply convince anyone, right? That's not my goal. I just want to talk about it.
All right. So the authority, would you consider yourself to be an authority for this particular field of study? Because it's not, you're not an astrophysicist, right?
You're not an astrophysicist.
Yeah. Oh, so you were considered an astrophysicist. So
in modern scientific parlance, like an astrophysicist and an astronomer are the same thing. Like there's really no practical difference.
So they're basically synonymous. Like if you were to say if you're an astronomer, people would say, well, he's an astrophysicist too. Like,
yeah, I mean, all my colleagues, like I've heard people call themselves either one. Like it doesn't really matter. Like no one in the scientific field makes a distinction anymore. Some people say they're astrophysicists. Okay. Some people say they're astrophysicist is like impressive, right? You want but it's like I don't usually use that. I think it sounds a little pretentious, right? I usually just say I'm an astronomer. But I think either way, that would be
but obviously there's contributions that you're making to the specific academia, which is like
I do physics. I do a lot of physics in my work, and then I study, take pictures of space. So I'm an astrophysicist, right? But I just, anyway.
Okay, there's some misconceptions, I would say, just the base knowledge of people what you guys are doing, behind the scenes and all that stuff. But would you say excuse me, guys, if I'm asking a bunch of these questions, but what I want you guys to know as an audience, me asking these questions. There's a clearing of the air for so there won't be any misconceptions as to specifically what he does, and also what questions you want to formulate to ask him if he's in here. So there wouldn't be these other questions that could be brought up. But I was hearing you with the conversation earlier. You weren't speaking to things that you weren't studied in, or a field that you weren't knowledgeable in, and you made that known to the conversation. To kind of steer away from.
Honest to me to try to represent a really firm opinion on something that I didn't feel like I fully understood myself, right? Like there are certainly things that I feel that I understand, and there are plenty of things that I don't understand, right? And I am not going to pretend to understand the things that I don't understand. Yeah.
So just as you're saying now, you would be forthcoming and intellectually honest. That way, we can know for sure if any questions were asked you. You would be intellectually honest and tell us, well, I know, right? Or I don't know. So it'd be easy for you to do that, right?
Kind of just wasting our time, right? I mean, I'm not really here to. I'm not here to mislead anyone, right? That's
right. So I'd be happy to just indulge me in this exercise of your base knowledge of the Earth being a globe. As you may or may not have heard, a conversation that was taking place when you jumped into the server a while ago with this gentleman I was talking to right now. It got pretty heated, but needless to say, he's very young, and he's in the server right now, and didn't go well with his the outcome of that. But he's still in here. I mean,
I didn't hear anything like that. I just got here.
Okay. All right. Well, let me just run through this exercise. I do this with everyone, so it's
okay. But before I thought did you say you had a question about exoplanets in particular, or is this something else?
Yeah, I do actually, but I think I just want to get through this exercise really quick because you're somebody in academia, and I think that if people hear you run through this exercise, then to them it's going to be like, well, I don't know, I should ask the expert, and you are the expert, let's say. So they could hear you from the horse's mouth, let's say, the expert speaking on this subject matter. So the exercise that I'm going to give you would be most essential for their ears to be listening to, because now they're going to hear not only from just the average Joe on the street, but from somebody coming from an academic standpoint. And now we're going to get somewhere. So at least when they say, well, I'm not the scientist in the room, we're astrophysicists, we got one in the room. So now that we have that, we're going to create, a kind of a bit of an atmosphere where they can understand, okay, I'm not the expert, but there's one right over there. He's talking right now. So that being said, now everybody in the room, this exercise is going to be like even that much more important, right? So with this, I usually pose 3 questions, and they're pretty much a baseline for your knowledge right now. What's your name again? Itaer? Itaer?
Itaer is usually how I pronounce it. Yeah.
Itaer, okay. Itaer. So basically, it's just 3 questions, pretty simple. And if you don't know them, we could skip off to the next thing, because if you say I know, then I'll ask you the leading questions as to hyper-specifically, how you know about these questions, like as in primary source, citation, and demonstration on the information, right? So if you say you don't know, that's fine. I'm not. This exercise is not meant to like gotcha. It's just meant to know. Okay, this is what you know. This is what you don't know, and you could easily say I don't know, right? But if you start to meander through the I'm prefacing it this way so that you can understand.
Sounds like it's sort of a whole thing, which is not what I was.
Yeah, it is. It is actually a thing, right? It's a thing, but like, don't be afraid. If you're intellectually honest, you could fly through these things pretty quickly. So,
all right, but
there's 3 questions.
I wasn't here to have a whole super long discussion about
it'll be quick. Trust me, it'll be quick. Right, if you're intellectually honest, it'll be quick. All right. So the first question is, who has measured the curvature of the Earth any time in history? And if you know, like I said, hyper-specific, give me the primary source, citation, and a demonstration.
My best knowledge of that would be that I have, when I was in undergrad, I was asked to reproduce the math behind Eratosthenes' experiment. Is that how you pronounce his name? The Greek guy who did the sticks.
Eratosthenes. Eratosthenes.
I don't speak Greek. You guys know what I'm talking about, though. That guy.
Sure. Go ahead.
That's my answer.
Well, he
that was the answer. Okay.
Shadows, so you're going to have to get demonstration.
Yeah. So right. So hyper specific, right? So if we're going to talk about primary source, you'd say Eratosthenes. Okay. So the citation, probably wiki. I'm just going to help you out on this because I've seen this about 1,000 times.
I'm not going to go Google it. What I said specifically was I was
you don't have to
use the math.
No, you don't have to.
So it wasn't really about who did it necessarily, right? I was asked to try to understand why it works the way it does, and that was my first exposure to that, essentially.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying that you don't have to because I already know about this information, but I need you to tell me how that relates to directly measuring the surface curvature of the Earth. So what did he do that we can directly measure the surface curvature?
Well, it is not a direct measurement of the surface curvature. It's a measure of the radius of the Earth, which of course allows. But I'm completely aware, even mathematically, that it allows for 2 interpretations. You can have a local sun, right, or a faraway sun, and it works out either way.
Okay, so let me then go back to the question and restate it again so I can get some clarification. What I asked for was a direct measurement of the Earth's curvature. So it sounds like Eratosthenes is not going to get us there. I can give you a mulligan and just let you try to figure out if anybody is directly measuring the surface curvature anytime in history. And if you say that you don't know, I will grant you that, and we can go to the next question. If this is only going through what your baseline knowledge for the Earth being a globe is.
If someone were to ask only 3 questions, like, what is the best way we could measure the curvature of the Earth directly? My answer would be to look at pictures that were taken from space.
Okay, but when has it ever been directly measured?
I understand. Of course, that's probably a point of some contention. But if you were to think that they were real, which I of course understand is not necessarily something we can agree on. But if there were a picture, if you were real, it'd be pretty direct measurement, right? You see the curve right there, right? It'd be pretty easy to.
But
hang on, Flatsy. Guys, let me just take this, okay? If you will.
I'm so sorry.
Right. No worries. Okay, so what I asked for was a direct measurement of the Earth's curvature, and how was it derived? Primary source, citation, and demonstration. So if we're going with your pictures, right, then I'm going to ask you for primary source. I'm going to ask you for a citation, and then the demonstration of how it was done. And I'm getting hyper specific because we need to know this fundamental question needs to be answered with the most strictest of prejudice. So we have to specifically know exactly how it's been done. And if you, like I said, if you don't know, it's simply say I don't know, and we can go to the next question.
Is that a question for me? Sorry. Was that
Yeah. So if you believe somebody just figured it out and you don't know how they figured it out because it's not your area of expertise, I will accept that, and we can go on to the next question. But you have to say I don't know.
Not my area of expertise. That is a very fair statement.
Yeah. What would you say that you don't know then?
If you're asking me for a citation of someone who has directly measured the curvature of the Earth, I would say that I do not know.
Okay. And that's fine. So the next question would be, it's like the first, but this way it's going to be asking about the axial rotation or the spin of the Earth. So they're claiming, right, the claim is that the Earth is spinning at the equator at about 1,000 miles per hour. Now, you could probably look this information up to kind of, really kind of cite what I'm saying. This is the claim, right? Whether you may or not know this is what they're saying. At the equator, it's measured to be spinning at about 1,000 miles per hour. So, the same as the first, who has ever measured this axial rotation by an apparatus, any device, a person or people, and how has it been done? Same as the first, primary source, citation, demonstration. And you could say, I don't know, and if you feel like somebody's done it that you don't have to look into, I'll accept that.
I have heard that this has been measured with gyroscopes, but I've never, seen it done in front of me or anything like that.
Okay.
But I would like to just interject super fast, like not trying to distract us here. It is, I think, a little bit. I understand the principle involved in the asking of these direct measurement questions. But I do think it's a little bit unfair to require that everything must be directly measured. There are certainly things we can understand that we can infer from evidence without measuring them directly, like the existence of bacteria or something, right? And we can measure them now, but that's not always been the case, right? We understood about bacteria for a long time before we could measure them directly.
Sure.
So you would say the Earth, if someone were to ask me for proof of that, it might be hard to measure directly with an instrument, but sunsets seemed a pretty reasonable proof from me, or not maybe not proof, but some evidence. Yeah, evidence.
So Itaer, for the sake of not meandering, like I said in the beginning of it, it's easy to say I don't know, and we can just go to the next question, which means that you would rely on someone else that they figured it out, which is, like I said, it's fine with me. Just as long as you're honest,
works, right? As a scientist, yeah. So sure, let's move on.
Well, I mean, okay, but I have to hear you say you don't know. That's the way we move on, because that confession comes from you, not from me. I'm just asking for your baseline knowledge. So if you say you don't know, you're intellectually honest, and we can go forward.
I would say what I did for the last one, that if you're asking me for a citation for someone who's done that directly, I do not have one. I do not know.
Okay. All right. The third question, you might know this because this is probably your wheelhouse. So, we're gonna talk about this specifically, and then I'll give you the way that we talk about it in here. So I'm gonna phrase it in a way so that you can have an understanding of what we said. It's probably something that you were in the discussion earlier today. So you might recollect that you were already talking about this, but let me stop waffling. All right, so the question is, we're talking about gas pressure. And so gas pressure or the vacuum of space, right? The vacuum of space is said to be adjacent to the pressure air that we breathe here on Earth. So we're breathing pressure at about 14 psi on the surface. So they're telling us that, when you get past the thermosphere, the exosphere, you're dealing with, the low pressure system at about 10 to the -6, right? Somewhere around there. And like they're saying that the super low pressure that's up there, low Earth orbit, satellites and all that, we're talking about pressure differential that far exceeds, as you start going up, the pressure gradient and all of that takes hold, and the airplanes flying at whatever height, altitude, 40,000 feet in the air. And so with this understanding of having this high vast differential, we're talking about the gas pressure that we have here on Earth. How is it possible that we can have this gas pressure without any containment? So it is uncontained in the sense of saying, with this super low pressure out as a vacuum of space, right? The pressure then would find its equilibrium and disperse off into the void, right? Because it would find its equilibrium, and we wouldn't have any air here on Earth. It would disperse, because that's what gas pressure does with an open system. So if I put air in a balloon, put air in a metal tank, metal bottle, and I pressurize that tank, if I open up the valve, the air rushes out into any and all directions, because that's, what we'd say entropy takes hold, right? High pressure moves to low pressure, that sort of thing. So you might know a little bit about this, but this is a natural law. It happens always. You can't escape that unless there's a way around it that somebody's talked about. So now the question, because we have an open system, how is it possible that we have gas pressure without a container?
Yeah, so this actually is something that we discussed earlier this morning. I mean, you and me, but it was discussed earlier, yeah. And of course, my answer is gravity. But in a more general sense, let's do a little thinking thing, right? So imagine that you had like a bucket, right? Like just a bucket, normal Home Depot bucket, whatever. And you put this bucket out in the space, quotation marks around it, right? In a vacuum somewhere, whatever, right?
Sure.
And then you put like a balloon in the bucket and you pop the balloon, and then the gas goes everywhere, right? Like it just dissipates, as you said. We can agree that is what would happen, right? Like you pop a balloon in space, the gas, or in a vacuum, whatever, right? And the gas just dissipates. It goes everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
With me so far? If you look at any particular atom of that gas at any particular time, it's going to be dissipating with a finite speed, right? It doesn't just shoot off into infinity at infinite speed. It moves. It's traveling, right?
Right.
Is that reasonable?
Yep. In your example, yep. So
if I were to take this bucket, right, and put a balloon in it, I pop the balloon. If you were to move the bucket at a speed which exceeded the dissipation velocity of the gas would remain in the bucket, even though the top of it is open, right?
What are we doing with the bucket again? We're
moving it really fast.
Around? Is that what we're doing?
So it's moving faster than the gas is trying to escape from it, right? So then the gas would stay in there, right? Is that reasonable to say?
No.
Yeah. In this example, is it like a hypothetical, or is this something that has been
Definitely
done
a hypothetical,
in a demonstration?
Yeah. Don't put a lot of buckets.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to make a differentiate that this is a hypothetical. This is not a demonstration in any way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Just hypothetical.
Oh, I continue.
So
Please continue.
Have you done this?
No. It's just a thought experiment.
He says it's a hypothetical.
It's not a scientific experiment. I think I'm just making sure we're on the same page, right?
Yeah, but keep going.
Well, that's it. I'm done. I mean, do you agree that is what would happen?
Oh, okay.
No.
Oh, of course. I agree with you. You know why? I can agree with you.
Because
I don't know if you know why. Yeah, it's hypothetical. I will agree with anything in a hypothetical because it's a hypothetical. I can tell you that unicorns fart rainbows, and you can say, and if I tell you it's hypothetical, you have to agree with me, because how can you disprove what I just told you?
Well,
there's no way it's a hypothetical.
I mean, I could tell you hypothetically, if I shot you in the head with a gun, you would live, and you would say, well, no, that doesn't seem real right to me. There is somewhat of a difference, right?
Well, I'm saying, though, hypotheticals to me are like imaginary land. In a room full of people who are critical thinkers and empiricists, we are looking at things in a way to provide evidence to the physical and natural world. So if we're talking about things that can be demonstrated, then I think that leans more into the evidence, credibility, versus me saying, magical three-toed gnomes are pulling the air down into the earth and holding it down. So I can't provide evidence for that. But I'm like, well, that's just, think about it as a hypothetical. We got magical three-toed gnomes that are pulling down the air, and that's keeping it to the ground. And then you would say, well, that's a hypothetical. I can agree with you on that. And I'll be like, well, that's not fair. Well, why isn't it fair? It's a hypothetical. Anything can go in this realm of a thought, idea. So that's not fair to me, because you're making it very unfair, actually. So back to the example, because you said gravity and then you skipped off to this thought experiment that you had, which in the hypothetical I can agree with you on anything, because anything goes, really. So I know it doesn't sound fair when I say that, and it's kind of like a slight to your intelligence. I don't mean that way, trust me. But what I want to do is get back to the physical and natural world. So coming back to the third question, and we're talking about how is gas pressure here on Earth, you say gravity. Okay, I'm just going to say, if gravity is the answer, and we're going to look into gravity being the thing that keeps the gas pressure here, in what way can we actually have a demonstration of this happening in the physical and natural world? Because what we'd have to do is go ahead and produce something that would show gravity containing the gas in any way, shape, or form. So how is gravity becoming now the container for the gas pressure? Do we have an example of this in the physical and natural world, not a thought experiment?
My answer for that is, we can look and see other bodies like Jupiter. But I would, before we get into that, I have agreed and with everything you said. But no, really, hold on. I've agreed with everything you said before, and I thought they're reasonable questions, and I've tried to be fair in my answers to them. But I do not think that what you have said about hypotheticals is fair. There is a distinction between posing a reasonable question and trying to think about how things might work under the rules that we know, and fantasy stuff like you're talking about unicorns and rainbows is different. If I were to shoot you in the head with a gun, would you live? You could say, well, hypothetically, you never know. It's like, well, no, I'm pretty sure, right? It's a pretty reasonable question.
No, because you can shoot him in the head and try it. You can't take a bucket out to space and see what your hypothetical question was. That's the difference.
You could conceivably build an apparatus that would test this, right? Make a vacuum chamber and accelerate a bucket along a thing, right? Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to shoot him in the head either, right? There is value to being able to interrogate the world.
You can shoot him in the head. You can't do this bucket thing.
Yeah, see, the difference with the hypothetical is that it was posed in a way that there was something that can be done, and the other one was it can't be done, because you have to have there's an underlying
I could add
premise.
Complexity to this situation to formulate it in such a way that you could construct it somewhere conceivably. But I genuinely do not think that adds intellectual value to the discussion. Okay, that's not the point.
Well, okay, so yeah, we were talking about the. Go ahead, Timbo.
No, I was just going to say, people have shot people before. Have people put buckets in vacuums and exploded a balloon and then taken it away as fast as the gas is expanding and see if the gas stays in the bucket?
I think we both know the answer to that question. But it's really, I'm not trying to be difficult here. I really don't think that's important. I genuinely don't.
Answer.
Yeah, but that's fine. That's fine. The answer is no. The answer is no to that. The answer is no to that. We both know the answer is no. But here's the thing, right?
I'm not trying to argue.
Okay,
about
so
that.
Right. So let's get back to what the third question was all about. It's your baseline of knowledge of what you know of how the answer for the question would be, and it was gravity. So yeah, I know you felt slighted with the whole hypothetical thing, but we understand that it was nothing that can be done in reality. So let's get back to reality and let's talk about. I really don't think
we've resolved our difference on this hypothetical thing.
Right, but I think we're hung up on that. I think what we need to do is really focus.
Importance.
No, I think that if it was, then the physical and natural world would have a demonstration of said understanding. So we don't have to look at it in the sense of saying, okay, what can we gather from that hypothetical? Something in the physical and natural world? Or was it just some kind of crazy idea that could be possible, but then it has never been tested? So it wasn't like something that I was just like, hey, you know what, that's pretty stupid. It's just rainbows and unicorns. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it was never been put to test. So even if that was the case, you'd have to then follow through and construct something to where that could be the possibility that you will show this as an example. But it can't be done. Therefore, it still hasn't been done. So you can't use it currently. We're looking to what right now, currently, how it's operating. So in this current status of operation, right, the Earth being a globe as an open system, we're trying to figure out what is the mechanism by which that gas pressure is not escaping into the void. So we're looking at things, and gravity seems to be the answer currently. So that's why I don't want to go looking into hypotheticals right now. When I look at how the operation's happening currently with what known reality is telling us. Therefore, getting back on point, hopefully, how is gravity being the container that's containing the gas? We need a demonstration of how gravity is a container. And if there is not such a thing, and you think somebody else figured it out, I'll give you that. We can just wrap it up, Just say you don't know. We can go.
This is why I'm here, because this is the kind of stuff that's super cool that I want to learn about, right? So what you're saying is that, so what you're saying is that, in order for you to believe that gravity was what is creating the state of the system we see, right? Whatever the explanation for it, you would require a separate demonstration of that principle that could be repeated by anyone. Is that what you're saying? Or not anyone, but you know what I'm saying? Repeatable, right?
Gravity. Well, gravity was the claim that's keeping the gas onto into the ecosystem. So what we're looking for right now is a physical, natural world real world demonstration of how gravity is doing said thing that it's doing. So there's a claim on the table, right? And I'm not saying that you made it, but what I'm saying though, people advocating for it are going to now, the burden of proof has to land on those who are advocating or making the claim. So the advocation for the claim is that the claim is that gravity is holding the air in. Well, what the gravity colloquially termed to be known as is an effect, right? It's an effect. We don't know the cause, because the cause in the globe is, right? I don't want to get too far into the weeds with that, but like you already know, I know what the claim is on that. The theory.
Well, like I said, this is interesting. This is the kind of thing I came here to learn about, because, I just saw a couple videos about that. I told it this morning, but I don't know if you were here. I was just like, I'm not here to try to get into some crazy debates. I just want to hear what you guys are thinking, and why do people think these things, right? And I think what we've hit on here is really interesting to me. So what you, again, just to repeat what I said earlier, just make sure we're on the same page, right? We have this idea, you say gravity is doing the things, and that's why it looks like this. And you say, okay, that's fine, but to believe that, I require a separate demonstration that shows that principle in action, probably in like a smaller form that I could repeat on my own or something like that, right? That's what you're saying?
I wouldn't think it's
talking about down to the details. I mean, whatever, but like, a separate demonstration.
But check it out. I don't think when we speak in this manner, it's not a belief any longer, because belief was only required when the thing that was said was a thought experiment. It was like, well, what do you think about this? This could be the case, right? And we'd be like, well, yeah, this could be. I mean, at that point, I think I could believe that this could be, but I don't know until the part where we're actually saying, okay, let's focus on some kind of demonstration. What can we do? Let's try to quantify this. Let's figure this out, and kind of get a handle on how we're going to test this. So when we do that and put that into the physical natural world, then we actually make known what was a belief or a thought experiment or some kind of hypothesis, and we can then now test this result to be the case. But see, that's what I'm saying. So we're getting to the matter of either the knowledge that we have is built on this idea, this belief perhaps, but not on something we can verify.
That's what sorry to interrupt, but like that's what I was trying to get at a second ago that I think is really interesting. It's the question of like what you think is required for something to be proved to you, for your own sort of satisfaction. And so the idea that you would require a separate demonstration of this principle is not something that I think I would personally require. And what I mean by that is, excuse me?
You're getting your words mixed up, mate. It's not a separate requirement. It's the actual requirement. So
either way, that's not really the point. Well, the point that I'm trying to make is
no. Hang on. You're saying...
Well, I was kind of talking, so...
Hang on. You're saying you need a separate experiment or demonstration. It's not a separate experiment or demonstration. It's actually a demonstration of the thing you said doing what it's doing. That's the only thing. That's it. It's
yes, and what I was going to say is that for me, the demonstration of this model being the world that we live in is sufficient as long as that model is self-consistent and makes testable predictions.
Are you talking about mathematically or in reality?
Now hang on, guys. Yeah, hang on. Sorry, so you're just talking about a model at this point, and what we're talking about is actual physical, tangible reality. When we go outside into the field, so when you go to the field and you test in the field, you're going to use the physical, natural world around you. You're not going to use a model. The model was there used for like whatever predictability ideas that you have, and constructing mathematical ideas and such. But what we're doing right now is now taking whatever people are saying about the Earth being a globe, going out into the field on the very same thing, not a separate thing. The separate thing you're talking about is model and reality, like out in the field. So that's why you're saying another one. It's like we're talking about the very same claim that they're saying with the gas pressure claim. So we're going out into the field. Where out in the field can we test this information to be the actual reality in which you and I exist in? Whereas gravity becomes a container for gas pressure. And so that's the question at hand at the moment for having gas pressure without a container. So if that's possible, then we need to demonstrate that in the field, whereas the idea of a model in your mind, that's where you're kind of happy with, is only good enough for you. So the people in here, we're like, okay, the thing in question, which is gravity being the container, we want to see it acting as such. And if it is, then that would satisfy the question of the gas pressure without a container argument, being gravity would be sufficient. But it needs to be demonstrated to us. As in, it needs to be the thing that holds the pressure in. So, I would say if you don't have that specifically, just say I don't know, and we can move off to the summarization of the three questions. Because I think keeping us from just waffling on into other topics, we can just wrap this up and.
Well, I'm happy to say I'm not an expert on the first two questions, but I really do still disagree with you here. I think that if you have a description of the world and it makes sense and it explains how things work, and then you go out and you discover new things and they still adhere to that description, then that is a demonstration.
But are you going out into the field and demonstrating it?
Well, or is it for me, right? I look at other planets, other stars, right? They appear to obey the same description that we've developed here before we even knew they existed.
What?
That's reasonable support, and at least for me, it's
right.
It's
right. That's great. That's great that you have that mind for whatever reason you want to have that mind for. But the demonstration only suits the Earth that you're standing on. So this Earth. Not any other planetary body that you might have. And I'm using these words to kind of like resonate with what you're saying. So that's the only reason why I'm using them. Otherwise, I would not be. But if you're saying that you're sharing other planets,
if you prove it somewhere else, it's not necessarily proved like here for Earth.
No, the thing is, what I'm saying is that those other places are not this place. Mm-hmm. We're talking about this place, not those other places.
Yeah.
So if we're saying that,
well, I wasn't
right. So
you brought it up.
Well, no. What I'm saying, coming back to what the question was about, it was about this specific place, not those other places. So if you point to some other place, I would have to direct your attention back to this place and say, no, we're talking about how do we have air here on this place. So if you can
everywhere we look, things appear to work the same way.
Yeah, but I don't want to look somewhere else. I want to look right here. It's got to be demonstrated here on Earth that thing we're talking about, which is gravity, is a container, and we have to demonstrate that. So if you can't do that, then it's simple for me to say that you don't know. But you'd have to admittedly say that. If you keep
I would not say that I do not know. I would say I do not agree with you that it is necessary. For me to have a self-consistent model which describes things, which makes predictions, which appears to be an accurate, at least somewhat accurate description of how things work.
Let me ask you.
That seems like a reasonable description of the world.
Right. let me ask you a question. Why do you think I'm getting resistance from you on this one last point? Do you feel like because it's your area of expertise, or do you feel like you should know this, or what do you think that the reason is?
I think you're getting resistance from me here because we've found something of a fundamental disagreement.
Right, in demonstration? In demonstration or in a model? Like, because I'm looking for the demonstration in physical known reality. So we're going out into the field and testing this idea that you're talking about. So that's what we're doing. And if you're saying we can't do that, then why is it that we can't do that? I'm looking for the answer to the question: why isn't it possible to demonstrate gravity being the container that contains gas out in the field?
I can give you two answers to that question. The sort of easy answer is that, the formulation, like the gravity that I talk about, right? The scientific concept of gravity, right? Gravity is not very strong as a force, right? You're familiar with this concept? Like if you have sorry?
Is it force?
Yeah, or effect, whatever you want to call it. The semantics are not really important here. It's not very strong.
Yeah, they are.
Right?
Words.
So if you take a magnet and you hold up a paper clip with this little fridge magnet, right, you can hold it up against the entire gravity of the Earth. It's not a very strong force, and so in order to demonstration,
sorry, Itaer. Let me save you some time. We're understood in the fact that the rhetoric is talking about it, the weakest of all fundamental forces. So you can continue.
It's fine. So the point is, because it's weak, right, you would have to construct something of extremely high mass in order to have a physical, hands-on experiment of the gravity influencing gas to stay in a container. It'd be a hard thing to do. Practically difficult. That would be my first answer. But my second answer is, in terms of my area of expertise, I look out into the universe and I do see things that appear to be acting in accordance with this idea. Like I said, Jupiter or Saturn, these gas giants, right? They appear to be a very massive object where gravity is holding the gas, right, and causing that gradient, the same as we see it here on Earth. Now, I know you're not happy with that because it's not here, and that's fair. I think that's a difference of opinion, though. For me, that is reasonable evidence. For you, it's not, and that's a difference of opinion. That's subjective.
Right. The first rebuttal was that you couldn't demonstrate it because the Earth we needed something the size of the Earth. That was your first rebuttal, that you couldn't demonstrate it. So it cannot be demonstrated here on Earth because we needed something the size of Earth in order to demonstrate something like that. The second one was, let's look at other things.
But something quite large, certainly.
Right, but that's, But then the second one was that let's look at something else other than the Earth. Once again, like it's like those two rebuttals to the thing that I'm asking for directly looking at the Earth is actually saying that, number one, I can't demonstrate it because I need something as big as the Earth. Or number two, let's look at something else other than the Earth. Do you see the problem I'm having here? Because now it's like, first of all, the first rebuttal was, well, we can't do it. The second one was, well, let's just do it with something else other than the Earth. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with just doing it from the Earth? Like, because that's what everybody's asking.
An actual, like really sincere question. Like, I'm not trolling you here.
Go ahead.
So, suppose for a moment, I know, hypothetical, right? I know. but bear with me, right? So, suppose for a moment.
Oh my God, Itaer.
No, seriously. Just give me the benefit of the doubt here, man. Give me the benefit of the doubt here, man. This is not a hypothetical like experiment or anything. That's what I'm talking about. If the understanding of gravity that we have, the scientists have, is true, right? If it were true, then it would be very difficult to demonstrate to the standard you want. But it would still be true, right?
Why do you think it's real?
Can. Well, hold on. I'm not talking about proof. I'm just saying that there can exist things that are very hard to prove that are still true, right? That's possible.
It's true.
Could I quickly jump in here just to speak to Itaer?
I would say this, Wolfgang, before you start. I'm at the last point of the 3 points, so I don't know if you just want to tie in whatever we're saying here, but I do want to finish up with the 3 points. So I'm going to let you go. I'm just saying, I'm just letting you know I'm at the end of the 3 points.
I just wanted to address Itaer when he's saying that he doesn't think a demonstration is necessarily necessary. But you have to understand the reason that we're doing this is because not only is there not a demonstration for this claim, but in reality, when we observe gas and air, it's doing the exact opposite of what it's claimed is happening, right? So air on the surface moves omnidirectionally. It doesn't move down, right? And gravity, in the conception that we're given, is supposed to be strongest at the surface. So it doesn't hold to logic that it can move up where gravity is strongest, but then when it gets to the edge of the atmosphere or wherever, much higher up, then that effect starts happening where it's pulled down. That flies in the face of what gravity is explained to be fundamentally. On top of that, you could look at
that's just a lack of understanding. Like, if you want to debate like the fundamental points, that's fine. But if you don't understand the model, then you can't really get into the details.
No.
You're just a misunderstanding of how hydrostatic equilibrium works.
No. That's entirely the case, right? The claim is that gravity is what would be holding the air down. That's the claim, right? But we can observably know the air moves omnidirectionally on the surface. It doesn't have a vector of down. That's not a misunderstanding. That's the fact. So that's observable reality. Your
interpretation of it is based on a misunderstanding of hydrostatic equilibrium.
No. There's no misunderstanding of what the claim is versus what's observed. The claim is gravity will hold it down. There'll be a vector of down for the air. That's not the case. It will not be pulled down. It's not pulled down on the surface. So it doesn't hold to reason based on what we're told of gravity as being strongest towards the surface. They would be pulled down higher up. Further, we could put a container of air in a vacuum and then open that container of air. The air is not going to sit in that container. It's going to disperse in all directions in the vacuum. So the reason we need a demonstration of this claim is because in reality, all observation of gas pressure behavior flies in the face of this claim. Do you understand that?
That's just not accurate.
What's not accurate?
Okay, so you say that at the surface, sea level, whatever, gas moves omnidirectionally. That's true, but that would be expected in this model. That's not surprising.
Right, but you're claiming that it's held down.
Yes, I am. Those two things are not in conflict, and the fact that you think they are just shows a misunderstanding of the model.
Going up is not going down. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Right, so saying that the air is being pulled down is in conflict with the fact that the air is going up very clearly.
I'm sorry, it's not. You just don't understand the model. I'm happy to explain what you're getting wrong.
No, well, I'll let me finish off, and we can come back to that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go.
But that's simply not true. So,
Itaer. So I want to make sure that I finish up this 3 points that I'm doing. So if there isn't any demonstration that we're going to look to gravity holding the air in any way, shape, or form, then we're going to say that you do not know how gas pressure is here on Earth without a container. So
no, I don't think
if you can't demonstrate, well, it is reasonable because that's the issue. Well, here's the thing: it's not up for this isn't up for debate. It's only up for a discussion of how it's possible to be demonstrated as such. And if it's not demonstrated, then it's not really, there's no point. So it's not really, this point is not an agree to disagree position. It's either right or wrong. You're either right in what you're saying, and you can solidify that by saying, I have a demonstration to follow up. And then we can say, okay, you've done it. But if you can't do it, then you don't have a demonstration, which means that you would be wrong in saying that. And that's okay to be wrong, because if you think somebody else figured it out, I don't care. To me, this question it's not about, okay, the 3 questions that I'm asking you is just basically your baseline knowledge of how this is true. It's not about a back and forth about how you ask me a question, I ask you one.
That's not exactly what you're saying. My baseline knowledge of, for instance, the model of how this works is quite accurate, but that's not what you're asking about. You're asking me for a demonstration, which, as we both know, is not really something that exists for that. And that's 2 different things, right?
So it doesn't exist?
Not to my knowledge, no. But I mean, well, okay. By your standard, from my standard, it absolutely does. The world that we live in and the observations we make are sufficient demonstration for me. And so this is the thing that is our tension here. Okay. To your standard, I do not believe that there's an experiment that exists that shows this. To my standard, there absolutely is.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and just tie this up, because at least on this point, I understand that there isn't a demonstration to follow up. As you say, the way I'm saying it, which everybody here knows is the only way. But so let me just go ahead and put a summarization to this. So, yeah, it's the truth. It's the truth. Everybody heard. So now we're going to get to the final point of this exercise, which is, I'm going to summarize. So the Earth being a globe, spinning in the vacuum of space, It's just a belief that you have, even currently, as you reside in some academic position right now, as an astronomer. So it's kind of, to us, it's curious, but at the same time, we're trying to figure out why the world has gone this way. But nevertheless, we're going to go ahead and probably have conversations with you, probably more, because I still had questions about what I was telling you about the exoplanets. But on these three fundamental questions for the Earth being a globe, it was I don't know to the first two. And the last one was a little bit kind of like you have your own model and ways that you think about the Earth, but there was no demonstration provided. Therefore, it is just a belief. So all of us are content with that in here because we've already, thoroughly went through this many times. So we understand what the implications are. So I guess if you want to go ahead and have a conversation with anybody here, I think I'm done for the night because I have to turn in. But I really did want to talk to you about exoplanets, but we can have that conversation later.
If you want to talk about exoplanets, I'm happy to.
Well, I mean, I want to. It's going to be a lot of follow-up questions, dude. To be honest with you, I don't know. I still want you to hang around in the server. I don't want you to jet if you.
I'm not going to. It's very interesting discussions.
You know what I mean? But dude, I got to get up tomorrow. Is anybody else in here right now? You guys have been awesome,
I'm here, Mayhem.
Yeah, I'm here as well.
I'll pass the baton to you guys, man. But I appreciate you guys in the room.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks, Mayhem. Killing it as always.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Can we give Itaer the Globe Earth roll? I mean, can we do that? Let's see.
Yeah. I'll give it to him.
I appreciate you, fellas. I'm a jet. You guys been awesome.
Thanks,
Miggy, peace.
Gotcha, bitch.
It's all over. It's all over for him. I don't know if you realize it, but it's over.
Hold on, not yet. Clear?